Hello everyone, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to our webinar today on electric two-wheeler India market outlook post COVID-19. I am Jyoti Gulia and I represent JMK Research and Analytics, which is a boutique consultancy firm providing market research and advisory services across three key segments: renewables, electric mobility, and battery storage. And in our last 1 year of operations, we have been fortunate to work with some of the leading names in the sector, including BattRE, Renesola, Growod, WBCSD, and IFA, to name a few. Quickly on the format of the webinar will consist of interactive discussion with our eminent 5 speakers, followed by question and answer session. Each panelist has 10 minutes to share or present their views. Participants are welcome to submit their questions in the chat box at the bottom of their webinar window. And to take on the discussions today, we have a very diversified group. From the government side, we have our guest of honor, Shri Anil Srivastava from Niti Aayog. From industry, we have 2 key established players, Ampere and Okinawa, and 1 from the startup community, BattRE Electric Mobility. And lastly, a leading component supplier in the electric two-wheeler space, that is Lucas TVS. A quick intro about our speakers. We have from the government, we have Shri Anil Srivastava, who needs no introduction. He's the man driving the energy transition towards electric mobility. He's Principal Consultant and Mission Director for Transformative Mobility and Battery Storage at Niti Aayog. Thank you, sir, for joining us today at this webinar. Next, we have Mr. Jitendra Sharma, the founder and Managing Director at Okinawa. He has over 2 decades of experience in two-wheeler industry, and prior to starting Okinawa, he has worked with Honda and LML. Mr. Nishchal Chaudhary is founder of BattRE Electric Mobility. Prior to starting BattRE, he has been the sales and marketing professional with more than 19 years of corporate experience in the telecom sector. Next, we have Mr. Sanjeev, who's CEO of Ampere Electric Vehicles by Greaves Cotton. Prior to Ampere, he has served as Vice President Sales Huawei, where he was responsible for the growth of Huawei's sub-brand Honor. And last but not the least, Mr. Babu KSV is with us, who's head of 4 business verticals at Lucas TVS Group, including e-mobility. Mr. Babu is a veteran in automotive industry with 30 years of diverse experience. And prior to Lucas TVS, Mr. Babu has made significant contributions for over 26 years at Bosch Limited. Thank you everyone to be part of this webinar today. A very warm welcome to all of you. To start off, I will just give a brief context to our discussions today. As a nascent industry, electric two-wheeler is the fastest growing segment in the automobile sector, with striking advancements to be seen in technology. There are innovative business models, as well as new market investments. Electric two-wheeler market growth over the last few years has been driven by strong government push. Some of the key steps that the government has taken to fast-pace adoption in this market are Niti Aayog has set a target of 30% EV penetration in India by 2030. Various incentives and subsidies are provided under FAME 2 and FAME 2 schemes. As you can see, under the FAME 2 scheme, the subsidy outlay has been increased by nearly 10 times. Even the GST rates on the EVs are lowered from 12% to 5%. Registration fees are also waived off. And apart from these, there are separate state level incentives that are also provided. Moving on to next slide. FAME 2 scheme was introduced by the government in March 2019, and within a year of this scheme, significant progress has been made with 19 new electric two-wheeler product models being approved and incentives being availed in the range of rupees 17,000 to 30,000. And in a very interesting electric two-wheeler CXO survey that has been conducted by JMK Research, we asked the participants what is their opinion on next 5-year outlook for electric two-wheelers. And majority of them think that the market will cross 20 lakh units by 2025, while another 33% feel that the market can be anything between 30 to 40 lakh units. Also, given the present market disruption due to COVID-19, majority of the respondents are still confident of their business growth next year. About 50% of respondents are hoping that their business will grow by 2 to 3 times next year. Nevertheless, post-COVID-19, a lot of companies would have to rethink their business strategy to stay relevant. There will also be reinforced impetus for the indigenization of the supply chain and to be self-reliant or Atma-Nirbhar. In this backdrop now, these are the discussion points that we have planned for our webinar today. We want to assess the impact of COVID-19 on electric two-wheeler market from both established players angle as well as startup as well as component suppliers, importance of localization post COVID-19, what will be the growth prospects for low speed and high speed electric two-wheelers going forward, what are the emerging business models that are in the market, importance of charging infrastructure for electric two-wheelers, and what key issues and challenges that needs to be addressed. Now we would like to hear views and insights from our expert guest here today. Shri Anil Srivastava, we would like to start with Mr. Anil Srivastava. Thank you, sir, to be part of this webinar. I now request you to please share your views on how government is looking to fuel growth to this electric two-wheeler market in India. And are there any new initiatives and plans by the government to support this sector post-COVID-19? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jyoti. And I must congratulate you for organizing this two-wheeler discussion event.
Thank you, sir.
I remember sometime in August 2019 or around that period, I was talking in the electric two-wheelers forum or some such event somewhere in Delhi. And I said that the 2020 is going to be the year of disruption, year of massive disruption for two-wheelers. But nobody did realize that there would be even bigger disruption in the form of the COVID-19 to disrupt the entire economy and all the activities that we undertake. So now the discussion is what's post-COVID and in what direction it's moving. So, and I also do remember that once we put FAME 2 in the market, we were having reactions from the stakeholders, industry and other stakeholders as well. And then I suggested to various groups as to we must have a discussion on two-wheelers. Earlier, whenever we used to talk about the projections of the automobile, all the projections, all the discussions used to be keeping four-wheeler passenger vehicles at the center stage. And with our missions initiative and putting repeated emphasis on the fact that Indian automobile scenario is different, India is different, Bharat is different, we must talk about the three-wheelers, two-wheelers and the passenger modes of transport, and that is where it started. And the first one to come out was the Morgan Stanley. I remember they came out about a year back saying that electric two-wheelers are coming. That is the title of their report. And I'm really happy, Jyoti, that your organization has come out with this report, which has various facts and a lot of data from the primary sources, some from the secondary sources. But I would say that I generally I have a habit and the tendency to differ from the projections or the data which you put forward to. And I will tell you where do I differ from your report. So that's what it is. But before that, I must say that yes, we did put a lot of emphasis on the two-wheelers and three-wheelers during our FAME 2 formulations. There is a lot of work which has gone in even during the lockdown period. We had discussions with the stakeholders, and this discussion was a sector-wise, like two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, passenger vehicles, shared mobility, and the buses. All these 5-6 different groups of stakeholders were there on the web discussion, which I had with them individually in different sessions, and with some group we had more than one discussion. And then we tried to come out with something as to what should be done during this lockdown period when the activities are slow, and then how we should move forward the post-lockdown period. So considering all that, I must say that the impact of the COVID or this corona is going to be there on the economy. And as some of the recent reports have come out from the well-known think tanks or the business houses, saying that what I have been saying from the last 2 months, starting from the lockdown period as to the impact on the electric vehicle would be less than the total impact which would be there on the gasoline driven vehicles. So that is going to be very clear. Secondly, the experience which the people had during this lockdown period and the way they have seen it, I'm very sure that the future for the electric driven, the clean energy mobility is extremely bright. Now the issue is that how best we make use of this disruption or this pandemic to turn it or to convert it into an opportunity. And I look at it as an opportunity itself. And then again, I have been speaking for about 1 month or so that let's make it an opportunity. Then how do we make it, convert it into an opportunity that is for the stakeholders to think, consider and act upon. In fact, just our Prime Minister was also talking to the Chamber of Commerce, and there he mentioned that this should be taken up as an opportunity and taken in the stride, and we must move forward. So when you say that the CAGR of the growth of electric two-wheelers was 62% till date, and it is going to be 87% till 2025, I would tend to differ in the sense that yes, this year we have done more than 20% more than what we did last year in terms of the two-wheelers. And in spite of the fact that we were delayed in launching FAME, there was a disruption in the slow speed electric two-wheelers while FAME 2 was launched and it was being understood and the industry started adopting it. In spite of that, we have the numbers, more numbers than what we have been done this year. And that's really encouraging. And that also takes into account the disruption which had started somewhere in the beginning of the month of March. So looking at it, let me tell everybody that the mindset is very clear, the attitudes are very clear of the common person, and how do we have to make the best use of or make use of this opportunity. Now, to my understanding, this opportunity would be made best use. Another point which has come out in some of the reports, whether it is the recent reports of the Bloomberg, which they have come out with the electrical vehicle outlook, and a couple of other reports which have come out, and the two-wheeler reports also which has been come out. So when we say that this 62% to 87% and the growth which is going to take place, and it is also being said that the China has come out of this pandemic quicker than other countries and much earlier than probably when India is expected to be coming out of this pandemic, for the simple reason that the cases are still rising and rising sharply in India. So then what we have to do, we must keep ourselves ready. We must be looking at the situation. As soon as the opportunity arises, we must move forward. And what we should be doing in this period is that it is being said that because of China's disruption and because of the global disruption, the supply chains are impacted. Certainly they are impacted. But the issue is that to what extent we are dependent on those supply chains, and to what extent we can shift those supply chains in our favor, in favor of our country and in favor of India. Those OEMs who are largely dependent on the supply chains or the supplies from the foreign global countries and the other countries would be impacted most. And those who take the steps to make it as indigenized, as local as possible would be probably the least affected. Yes, the battery cells are not made in India. We are aware of it, and that in any case has to come from abroad. But rest of the products, it is for the companies to look at it as that how quickly do they shirk their dependence on the external supply chains, and that is where probably the success lies. Another issue is the fall in the battery price. Let me tell all the people, those who are in this webinar and those who are in my panel also, the prices of battery have fallen down more than what they were anticipated by the major projection makers in year 2016, 2017. The prices are lower than what they are in December 2019. They were lower than what they were projected to be. So we have to look at it. And if I have to quote the words of Tony Seba, the professor from Stanford, that these are who are the insiders, those who are the experts. They make the worst of the projections and the most of the mistakes in projecting the future. And he has quoted the example of the adoption of the mobile phones in the USA from 1985 to 2000. So friends, the battery prices is anybody's guess. What will be the battery chemistry is also anybody's guess. And the way research is going on, the way work is going on is also cannot be ignored, and one has to keep into mind and be aware of as to what is happening globally in these directions. But along with that, we have the urban mining, we have the recycling of the lithium-ion batteries, which has been included by the Ministry of Environment and the Forest in their list of recyclable and the product which could be recycled, and the components can be taken out. And along with that, the work which is going on in the hydrogen fuel and related battery chemistries which is going on. So these are the issues which are there. And friends, why I am so upbeat and optimistic about the two-wheelers and three-wheelers is that for the simple reason they are not really dependent upon the charging infrastructure or the DC fast charging which is required for the passenger four-wheelers. And very often it is being talked about as the range anxiety is the factor. In fact, the range anxiety is not critical for electric two-wheeler and three-wheelers. Total cost of ownership, as it was predicted 1 year back in the report of two-wheelers, that if you drive a two-wheeler somewhere between 6,000 to 8,000 kilometers per year, then the total cost of ownership is achieved and it becomes a priority. So anybody who's driving that much should own a electric two-wheeler. Now thing is, how well do we market it and how well do we convince or tell it to the final consumer as to, and along with that is the other business models which are emerging, whereas the price of the battery, if it is excluded from the price of the vehicle, then the vehicle cost is lower than the gasoline vehicle cost. So in that case, the other business model, whether it is leasing the battery or it is the swapping the battery or it is the OEMs adopting a different model for the energy supply, that also cannot be ignored. And there are enterprising entrepreneurs in the country who are coming out with different options. So all these things coupled and put forward gives us tremendous opportunity where there is a brilliant future and the bright future for the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers in the country. And I'm really looking forward to the tremendous growth for it. Thank you, Jyoti. I've spoken a lot, I believe, and I will be open for the questions.
Your optimism is highly needed in these challenging times. Now let's directly hear maybe from the horse's mouth, the players who are actually in this sector. And Mr. Jitendra Sharma, I would like to ask you two specific questions. What is the impact of COVID-19 on your business? And what do you think after COVID-19, how you're going to, strategize your business to stay afloat or relevant in this sector? Over to you, Mr. Sharma. You have to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Jyoti, for calling me on this panel. First of all, if you ask me about the COVID impact on our business, as everybody knows, for the last 2 months, almost everything was under closed down, lockdown. So I think this year till now is almost no business for first quarter, because recently everyone has started from June or maybe last week of the May month. So things are coming in a shape right now. It's coming on the track, and now slowly the business is going in the positive direction. As now after COVID-19, people will adopt, I think, in terms of you ask about the automobile business specifically, so people will adopt more personal mobility against the public mobility, public transport, because this is more important as a social distancing. People also understand because of this COVID-19, everything is in the panic. People are more aware about, they have to take care about their health. So I think personal mobility is one of that cause which will give for their daily commuting, for going to their office, to their shopping or some other places. So they will go for this public, not use the public transport, but they will use the personal mobility. And if you compare with the two-wheeler, because after BS6, the cost of the BS6 vehicle is increased drastically against the EV vehicle, because earlier everybody says that the EV vehicle the initial cost is high, but after BS6, I think that is not the case. So, and the running cost of the electric vehicle is almost 20 paisa per kilometer against the IC engine. If you see, that is around 1 rupees 70 paisa, 1 rupees 80 paisa, 2 rupees per kilometer. So in that way, the people can save lots of money in their running cost, but by the same time, they must have the good product, good performance vehicle, which can perform as good as the IC engine. So that is the case with the this electric vehicle. Then of course people will adopt for this personal mobility, and they go for this electric vehicle against the IC engine. And I think, as Mr. Shota has also said, we should be optimistic for the future, because I think when the everything will comes in a track, and I think now from this month, I think people are coming down to their offices, to their businesses, and the things are more on that track side. So this is a positive sign. Then people also understand now we have to live with the COVID till the vaccination is not coming. So we have to boost our economy also. And we have to, for that, we have to work continuously as we were working before this COVID-19. So for this, we have to take care of our health. So we have to use the our personal mobility. And I think EV is the best choice for them. And we are very much positive about that. After this, maybe second quarter or maybe after that, things will be going in a positive direction and business will get a good boost. And I think maybe whatever the sale, all the people in the, because if you see the overall market of the Indian automobile is more than 20 million vehicles in the two-wheeler segment. And IC and EV is almost less than 1%. So there is a very big chance for the EV vehicle to just to present in the automobile sector to grab that piece of percentage from the 20 million. Rather, they must have the good performance vehicle on the roads. So I think after COVID-19, the impact will not so big hit the EV vehicles. Of course, the automobile vehicles is going down. So overall market is shrinking. But I think in that whole scenario, the EV vehicle have a good chance to improve, and there will be a good sense of business in the future also. So that is there.
Yeah. Thank you, Jitendra. I think let's take opinion from a startup, BattRE, electric mobility. Sure. So Mr. Nishchal Chaudhary, as a startup, what are the interruptions that you had faced because of COVID-19? And what new emerging business models in this segment do you think are going to be up to stay afloat in these critical times?
Hi, Jyoti. Thanks for having me on this panel. I think interruptions, unlike any other industry, electric mobility also has seen, almost complete 2 months of lockdown, where the sales are almost zero. But as we move out of the lockdown, and when we, people start moving out of their homes, I think the biggest beneficiary is definitely going to be electric mobility. And the reason why I say that is because, even if you look at, the past recessions, almost every time, affordable mobility has been able to, if you look at 2008, 2009, when, the entire economy was not doing so great, but still the two-wheeler market was actually growing at 20-25%, which was actually, which is actually a very good sign for us if you look at it today when we are coming out of the lockdown. Broadly, I see there are going to be 3 broad categories, in terms of the market segmentation. One is going to be the people who are using public transport till now, who have never used a personal mobility vehicle or anything till now. They are going to be moving towards their own personal vehicle. Second is obviously the youth who are actually, again, new to category, who have never used a personal vehicle. They were dependent on the school buses or the college buses or buses other than that, who are naturally, which we see every year, there's a new category of youth who are eligible for riding a vehicle that comes in. And the third category is, which is also going to be a very big category, is of the people who are existing two-wheeler or four-wheeler owners, who are now going to move towards electric mobility because they have seen the impact of the lockdown in terms of our environment, how the air quality index has really improved over last 2 months. So how the the skies are so clear and air has become so crisper now. So broadly, there are going to be these three categories, and for every category, there is going to be a different usage pattern, and it is important for OEMs to understand what are those usage patterns, what are those needs, and what are the different models which are actually going to meet those needs of these new segments that are going to come in. And again, there are a lot of new business models which are evolving. There are a lot of companies like ride-sharing companies which are coming up. Almost every city now has got a local ride-sharing company, and not only ride-sharing, maybe rental companies, people with longer leasing models, longer rental models, which will come up, which will enable people who want to go for personal mobility but are not really able to afford a vehicle on their own. Maybe they will be going towards these ride-sharing companies and having a personal mobility for themselves. Having said that, for an OEM, so we see B2B as a very, very big opportunity where we can actually be, working together with the ride-sharing companies and meeting the needs of these three new segments which are going to come up. In addition, I think on the lower end of the segment, there is going to be a huge demand, which I think an affordable vehicle, if we are able to present something which is available sub 60,000 rupees kind of a price range and meets all the requirements of the people who are using the personal commute, I think that segment is going to see a huge growth. Overall, if you ask me, my personal view is, even if we have lost 2 months in this year, but we might be surprised while looking at maybe more than a 30% growth in this year, because personally I feel that electric mobility, and especially affordable electric mobility in two-wheelers, is going to be beating this trend and really going to emerge winners. Once if you look at the complete FY21 as such, maybe it's going to be more growth than what you had seen last year.
That's great, Nishchal. Let's speak to the early entrants in this sector now, from Ampere, Mr. Sanjeev. So we want to know from you, as an early entrant, what is the impact of FAME 2 and phase manufacturing program has on your business now, and what is your expectation going forward with FAME 2? Second important question that I want to get your views on is, what are the growth prospects of, Nishchal has already mentioned there is a huge potential in the affordable segment, but what do you think the growth prospects of low-speed vehicles versus high-speed electric two-wheelers? Over to you, Sanjeev.
Okay, thank you, Jyoti. This is a great forum, and good afternoon to all the eminent speakers today. It's great to have such a great audience today as well. So I would like to take a second question and then come to the first one. We've heard all the speakers speak. I think the fundamental opportunity for us is we have the largest two-wheeler market in the world. We sell at least 18 to 20 million, or rather 18 to 20 million Indians buy two-wheelers every year. 85% of personal mobility in the country is about two-wheelers. And I think this is only going to grow. We heard what Jitendra said as well. Post-COVID, people are going to shift to personal mobility, and we are exactly seeing the same kind of retail movement happening with us as well. Now, this being such a great opportunity, where is EV today? EV is hardly 1% of the overall market. With a lot of effort from all of us, we've reached out to about 400 cities and towns, rural plus urban. We are growing, but there's a huge opportunity. I think what we all are putting as pillars to see is this is going to be at least 15% by 2025, by all estimates possible. So that's a huge potential of a growth from now to 2025. And there's principally two kinds of vehicles here. One is the slow speed, or the low speed as we call, one is the high speed. Now, this is where the great advantage of electrification of vehicles actually is. What does this two-wheeler on low speed actually solve, or who does it go to? We have, I think, world over, putting people on mobility or moving goods or people is synonymous to progress of an economy. We have a lot of people, students, senior citizens, rural markets, who are looking at low-speed vehicles as an easy opportunity because there are no license categories, as we call them, right? High school students, college students. They're all looking at convenience, low-speed vehicles that they can put out of the road. So that's also going to stay and grow. The other side is high-speed vehicles. I think give or take, the industry today is split between 80-20, 80% still low speed, but of course, various brands, including us, we are seeing a high uptake of high speed simply because the EV technology on scooters and bikes as such has progressed. Today, the torque, performance, your entire sort of the payload capacity, etc., is equivalent or even better than some of the petrol variants. And also, as Jitendra rightly said, it's just 15 to 20 paise per kilometer. It's 1/10 the cost of riding a petrol scooter. The only problem that we all face is people don't know. The awareness is not there. I just shifted to an electric scooter. My son is extremely thrilled. He can't believe that it's just whooshing in, moving so fast, and zero sound, zero pollution. Marketers have been really smart in calling this sort of, you buy an electric scooter and you're indirectly planting 12 trees. Not just does it do good to the society or the air pollution, but it's also cheaper on your pocket. And the scooters are not expensive. It starts from 40,000-50,000 rupees, run up to 70,000-80,000 rupees. And rightly said, after BS6, even a high-speed scooter looks cheaper. So both are going to grow, but both serve different purposes. We have to put senior citizens on the road if they want to move. There are women users who want lighter vehicles, safer for them and convenient for them. And of course, some of them with no license categories as well. So we are solving what the petrol scooters or that segment would never solve. So that's the beauty. And also why this is so important is today with the 85% mobility being two-wheelers, more than 60% of the petrol consumed in the country is also two-wheelers. We have to solve that problem. I think people now understand what is air pollution. We've had more than 12 lakh Indians dying only because of air pollution. Today, with COVID, we realize the value of life. So I think with the performance, with the right purpose being solved, both the slow speed and high speed are going to grow till 2025. And we are going to see this accelerate. Most of us, all of us rather, are doing a collective good job of expanding in the markets. I spoke about 400. Many of us are trying to get it even more. Markets are opening up. I'm seeing every day the retail even higher than pre-COVID. I'm sure many of my friends will be seeing that as well. So I think this is going to go. Now, let's come back to the policy bit. Definitely the PMP guidelines have been quite helpful. It is pushing us, or rather a guiding force, to push for localization. I can't agree more with what Mr. Anil said. It is very, very important to build our own localized effort for scooters. And I think all of us are working towards that. The only outlier being battery cells, the rest, definitely the country is conducive to help us localize. And there will be an increased effort in that direction. The FAME2 policy did help, or rather at least support the high speed, but of course we can't ignore the slow speed, because I'll tell you a small story here. I heard about a milkman in Tamil Nadu who was using petrol scooter to deliver milk. When the petrol prices went up, maintenance cost keeps going up. He had to reduce the number of idlis he had for breakfast. The same man recently, a couple of months ago, when he moved to electric, the first thing he said was, I can have a better breakfast now. He saved cost. How can we ignore such people? Now, he may be a no license category. He's okay to ride at a low speed, but we have to enable them. That's why I said, it's a responsibility of us to put rural people on the roads, to help progress rural markets as well. And mobility is synonymous to progression. A milkman now can deliver faster than when on a cycle or a petrol scooter, or rather at least, like a petrol scooter. So these are the things that we need to work towards. I think the 5% GST, the various state government policies of sort of making registration zero, various electricity boards trying to draft policies of, per charge of charging stations, or the new norm for malls or residential societies to have electric chargers is very good. As Anilji said, there is absolutely no worry for two-wheeler for range anxiety, because a single charge puts you on the road, you can come back. The charger is just like your laptop charger in many of our cases. It's fast to charge, and you can keep going on. So definitely we have to work synonymous, hand in hand with the government, whether it's the FAME policy or the localization policy. We have to look at every step by step. PMP always works on stage by stage, because you got to encourage us, move together, and set up the next target and next goal and review with the society community, with the vendors. So I think we are all committed towards taking the electric penetration big. Nishchal spoke about new avenues, which is also very exciting. E-commerce deliveries, ride-share partners. We're seeing all of them embracing electric just because it just makes unit economics benefit for all of them. So electric is definitely going to grow, and we are looking at the opportunity. Yeah, Jyoti.
Thank you, Sanjeev. That was really insightful. Thank you so much. Taking the clue from here, last but not the least, Mr. KSV Babu. I want to know from you, as a component supplier, because of this FAME 2 localization criteria, what new opportunities opened up for a component supplier business? And secondly, we understand that EV powertrain development is technology intensive. So can you please throw some light on capabilities in India around that? Over to you, Mr. Babu.
Thank you, Jyoti, for inviting on the webinar. Good afternoon to all. PMP definitely has helped in investments and building the technology by all players in India, not only in the components and subcomponents, because whenever we look for a motor, just to give an example, we also need laminations or shafts and so on. So there are technologies involved in each of the subcomponents, and when the value chain builds up from the component level, subcomponents automatically is included. Therefore, phased manufacturing gives a very good opportunity for the ACMA members, including us, automobile component manufacturers. And the COVID has put a short break, I would say, in the developmental activities. For example, we lost nearly 2.5 months of nearly little development. In fact, we had to struggle a lot in the last 2-3 weeks to put all our resources to make certain samples which we had committed to some of the customers to ensure that their projects do not go out of control. So this is just on the COVID impact. Now coming to the technology for the powertrain. There are in the powertrain basically 3 or 4 components. One is the energy source, second is the motor and the controller, and maybe sometimes DC-DC converter is also used. I'll focus more on the motor, and I would like to be as much as possible agnostic to all types of vehicles, whether low speed, medium speed, or high performance areas. Maybe I will also show 1 or 2 slides to explain what are the products and the technologies in this domain. Please allow me to share a couple of slides. Colleagues, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, yeah.
So now coming to the motors in a two-wheeler, electric two-wheelers, where are they found? So one of the very common location is inside the wheel. We call as a hub motor or in-wheel motor. Then there are other layers where they have a motor somewhere inside the compartment throwing the engine out, and it transmits the power either through a belt or chain. We call this as frame-mounted motor, and it can be on the swing arm, on the suspension support, and it is transmitted through a gear or some arrangement here. There are also a few players in the two-wheeler who have a motor placed near the pedal, and power transfer happens through a chain or pulley and belt arrangement. So the same what I have explained, one is the hub motor, which is typically practiced in the low speed and medium speed vehicles, but there is no bar on using in the high performance bikes. Of course, there are certain concepts additionally introduced to take care of gyroscopic effects. Coming to the separate drive motor, which I explained, it can be at different places, and Lucas TVS is present in all these domains and working with the different OEMs to offer the solutions. So now I'll just give, always people think there is one product in the market, or there is only one power category. Therefore, I would like to show, even in the hub motor, there are different types of wheel sizes. It could be 10-inch, 12-inch, and different voltage systems. Even among our three panel members who are present here from the manufacturing domain, they also use different voltage systems. Some may be using 48, some are 60, some are 72, and different currents. So we need to make, from the technology point of view, make the motor and controller suitable for such systems. A typical motor built inside the wheel looks like this, and it will have an electronic device to control and certain characteristics and so on. What you saw is an in-wheel motor, which is very easier from the vehicle design point of view. You replace the rear wheel and put this a special wheel, and rest of the things are related to battery and location, maybe certain amount of cooling, airflow, and so on. There are other players who think for a different complicated motor and the drive arrangements. So typically, as the power requirements or the torque requirements increase for the high performance bikes, people tend to go for such motors, and this needs a complex drivetrain arrangement. Now, these are also
Mr.
available.
Babu, sorry to interrupt you here, but we have little time constraint. So I think a lot of our audience also not very technology agnostic, I would say. So,
so what I would like to continue discussing is on the technology for the motor. So there are two technologies in the motor. One is called BLDC, other one is called PMSM, and these involve rare earth magnets typically, because this is the only one big drawback in the EV domain. There are some technologies without rare earth magnets available in the world, but these are still uneconomical and not really suitable for the two-wheeler mass production. There are special technologies related to non-magnetic ways of induction, but these are not yet in series production. Now coming to the controller part, these are predominantly electronics, PCBA and software, which is core competence of most of Indian manufacturers. Therefore, it has the ability to source the chips, MOSFETs, and others plays the key role in how fast we can localize. Even though we do call as a localized controller, a large part of the controller in terms of electronic components is important. Similarly, in the motor, unfortunately, the rare earth magnets are obtained from China. Therefore, here I see these two as some of the critical challenges in terms of phased manufacturing program. Even though we produce these products, two items continue to be still dependent on overseas suppliers. Maybe in this direction, I would also like to call upon Mr. Srivastava to look into the duty structures, wherein we, in the process of encouraging quick electrification, we provide products at duty free, whereas the components are charged full duty, maybe 7.5, 10 or whatever will be the applicable category. So if we want to go for more and more local manufacturing, duties have to be inverted, that the components, key components, not every component, key components where we do not have the capability to make economically in India should be allowed to import at attractive duties or zero duties.
Thank you, Mr. Babu. That's very insightful. I would like to take a few more questions from the audience now. We only have 10 minutes to go. So I have two questions for Mr. Sharma. So one thing we have seen that Mr. Sanjeev has said there is a ratio of 80-20 between low speed and high speed. So what is your opinion that going forward, that with the FAME 2 scheme, that the incentives are only available for above 40 km/h, how do you think this ratio might change next few years?
Okay, Jyoti, if you ask my opinion, I think overall market of automobile two-wheeler is the high-speed market is more. Because if you see, because as a consumer, we live with the automobile industry for maybe 100 years or like this. Everyone sees that the speed is you can say, is a challenge for the EV vehicles, for the slow speed vehicles. Because whenever in the past, whenever you talk about the EV vehicles, people have a perception that EV vehicles are the non-performing vehicles. They have a very slow speed vehicle. They cannot have the loading capacity. They cannot go fast. Even sometime the cyclist can go far ahead from the slow speed electric scooter vehicles also. That was in the past also. But if you see, if you want to grab as an overall market for the, you want to do the electrification of the overall industry of automobile, there needs to be have the high speed vehicle, because people have more confidence. Till now, we have an experience of IC engine in India, because for last so many years, everybody is using the IC engine. When we want to go for this electrification, that must be a vehicle who have a good performance as far as compared with the IC engine. Then only people will change their mind to switch from IC engine to the electric vehicles. So I think, in my opinion, in future, of course, as what Mr. Sanjeev has said is maybe right. Maybe there is some quantity. Of course, there is a two type of vertical of the consumer is always there, because the some who is still riding the cycles, or the, you can say, college, school going students who are going to go for the tuitions or to buying the vegetables or something like that. Maybe they will go for the slow speed vehicle. But overall market, if you see the market scenario, the overall market is available for the high speed vehicles, because we have to transform from high electric IC engine to the electric vehicle, and that is only possible if we switch to a good performance high speed vehicles. So if you see, in Okinawa opinion, I think in future the market will grow faster in the high speed vehicle than slow speed vehicle. Same way, if you see B2B, the last mile connectivity, even the consumer, even the rider, they also want, they should take the people from one place to another in a shorter time. Same way, the delivery people, they want to have to deliver the pizza or something else in a specific time. So that needs the high speed vehicles. So I think future will grow more faster in high speed vehicle rather in low speed vehicle. This is my opinion. I think industry will go in that way only. Then only this electrification of the industry is possible.
Great, thank you. Sanjeev, we have next question for you. Like Ampere has both kind of models in lead acid as well as lithium ion. So what are your views, like future industry transition from lead acid to lithium ion? What do you think? How do you think this market will evolve?
I would resound what Mr. Jeetender said. I think this is exactly what I was trying to point out. If 1% of electric vehicles needs to become 15%, that is only going to happen if you give great experience and true speed that can be equivalent or even better than petrol. And I think we all have very good performing vehicles that can be an alternative. Now, having said that, lithium is getting really popular, not just in India, but also world over. For simple characteristics, lithium-ion battery, the charging is faster, the range is better, the life, especially of a lithium-ion battery, is also better, and maintenance is easier. So of course, we are also seeing, or at least we are seeing the shift towards lithium ion growing. It used to be quite different and peculiar. Different regions were behaving differently even within India. But of late, with the interest towards speed and performing electric scooters and two-wheelers, we are definitely seeing a push towards, or rather a pickup of lithium ion. And as Anilji also mentioned, it's encouraging to see how the lithium ion prices have come down. I think it still has scope for reduction, and it should, to enable all of us. At this rate, it is still expensive. But for riders who buy the scooters today or two-wheelers today, we offer a 3 years warranty all across, right? And on these high-speed vehicles. So by the time they go for a replacement, the battery prices are going to be much cheaper than what it is today. So that's a great news. So that's, I would definitely conclude saying the future is towards high-speed scooters or high-speed motorcycles. That's the true experience that electric can really offer. And of course, lithium ion is going to overshadow the proportion on battery technology for sure.
There is one more specific question for you, Sanjeev.
Sure.
The key reason for low sales under FAME 2 scheme, whether that's FAME 2 certification or the existing lead acid inventory with OEMs, or the localization criteria.
I think Anilji also rightly pointed out in the beginning, the FAME policy itself took some time to roll out. And the market earlier was more towards lead acid, more towards slow speed, etc. But what's very important to see is how has the market now shaped up over the last 2 to 3 quarters. It is definitely shifting towards high speed and lithium. And I would always say the government is a partner in all of this, but of course we as an industry need to go together hand in hand to drive the performance and sales of high speed. Mr. Jitendra brought a very good point. If we offer great performing scooters compared to petrol, and which is what we are all trying to do now, and we do have options, it is going to definitely transform how electric scooters are going to be picked up. So I think it's not just about inventories or so. It was sort of a pattern and a movement prior to FAME 2, and also how the whole thing has evolved over the months and quarters. Technology is just getting better and better, right? Motor technology gets better. I think we saw Mr. Babu speaking about it. So it's just that the powertrain has got better, the technology has got better, and we have really good performing scooters now.
Okay, thank you. Nishchal, next question, maybe you can take up. So someone has asked that as the major financial institutions are unwilling to finance the e-vehicles just compared to IC engine vehicles, so how companies are supporting this kind of financing from customer perspective?
Yeah, so actually for low speed vehicles where hypothecation is not possible, it is very difficult for us to actually get it financed. And mostly the companies which are doing financing are doing it only for a very limited set of people, so maybe somebody who's got a house in his own name or things like that. In fact, there is actually no subsidy on the low speed vehicles. So since Mr. Anil is there from Niti Aayog on this panel, I think we can actually have some kind of a support for the low end segment of the society who wants to go for a slow speed scooter which does not have registration. If we can have some kind of a support in terms of PSU banks giving loans like Mudra scheme, which is there for the lower end of the society. If there is some kind of finance facility which is available for the people from the lower end of the society at affordable interest rates, I think this segment actually can really take off from here. And while I agree with Jitendra ji and Sanjeev that high-speed vehicles, the contribution definitely is going to keep increasing because the finance is available on those vehicles. but still there is a lot of scope left in terms of the penetration of the low-speed vehicles. We're just sitting at 1% of the total two-wheeler market as of now. And if you have to reach 15% or 20%, at least around 50 or 40% of that will come from the low-speed scooters, because the market, the entry-level market, is going to be the first adopters of this technology.
Great, thank you, Nishchal. I think we have last 2 minutes, and Mr. Anil, I would like to ask you to give some closing remarks for the session. You are on mute, sir. Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting to have seen the discussion and the upbeat mood of the participants. One thing which I remember that exactly about a year back, when Niti Aayog, more than a year back, Niti Aayog came out with some kind of a deadlines to be adopted for two-wheeler, three-wheelers, electric vehicles, and there was so much of the turbulence and disruption in the industry because of those time limits and the deadlines being announced by a group of secretaries, the meeting being held in Niti Aayog. And after that, we had a meeting of the stakeholders and the industry players. And I distinctly remember that some of the participants in that meeting were saying it very clearly in front of at least 25 major OEMs of electric vehicles, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and everybody, saying that fame or no fame, we are going ahead with our electric vehicle plans. So that is the spirit. So that is what probably is the best suited thing for my closing remarks. Let me tell you, the commitment of the leadership and the commitment of the government is very clear in favor of the environment and in favor of the electric vehicles. And electric vehicles are highly subsidized in the sense that GST is 5%, so the 23% difference is there. There is an income tax benefit, and there are other benefits. A few of the things which the people and the participants here have mentioned in this panel, they would be taken note of, and we will be, I mean, in fact, we are working on it regarding the duty structures, and we also think, I mean, it's just a personal opinion, not yet a policy formulation, that there could be some kind of a playing with the duties, in the sense that to evolve and move the industry localization in the desired direction. Let us see that how well the government is able to play with those duty structures within the WTO norms. So that's what I would like to say. And thanks, Jyoti, for a very well organized discussion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the webinar. Your insights, your viewpoints are very important to the industry. And all the optimism that you have brought in the webinar, I think people are hopeful and the market will transition towards electric mobility. To the attendees, if any of your questions are not being taken up during the session, please share your questions at contact@GMK Research, and we will try to answer them individually. Thank you, everyone, so much for your time. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Jyoti. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone.